it's a really hard profession for a lot of people, but I encourage it.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do. And if you have a passion for it, you should be doing it too. I think there's so many houses out there that I'm not even worried about, oh, you're going to be my competitor at some point.
Right.
I think that everyone has their network and their sphere, and there's so many people in the world. That's not a concern for me. But I do think it's important that person that you go to work for, you need to know that person and you need to make sure you get along with that person, because if your values are aligned, then you'll be successful.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today we have a dynamic duo, mother and daughter duo in the studio, real estate professionals who have not only built a thriving brokerage, but have also redefined the way agents and clients experience real estate. Tari Taylor began her career journey in 2005 alongside her husband, Mike. They have started under a franchise model, but quickly realized the success in the industry is earned, not given by a brokerage. After learning the business inside and out, they make a bold move in 2010, launching Premier Homes Realty, a brokerage focused on agent empowerment and putting more money back into the client's pockets. Since then, they've personally sold over $215 million. I've told even more of that. State that number, saving their customers millions in reduced commissions and closing cost assistance. Their model still is 100% commission for their agents, ensuring that their team can fully focus on delivering the best service to the buyers and sellers. Now, Tari's daughter, Kari Francom, has joined the business, making this a true family operation together. They're proving that innovation, transparency, and putting their customer first is the key to success. If you're an agent looking to build a sustainable business, or a buyer seller looking for a team that delivers real value, this episode is for you. Let's welcome Tari Taylor and Kari Francom to the show. That's what ChatGPT. It sounds pretty good, huh? I like the way it pulls in, from your bios, and I was being a little, for many episodes, being a little more, just reading the bio and kind of just creating it myself. But when you put it all in there, it just brings more pizzazz to it, I think, for lack of better words. Yeah.
I love it.
I do want to touch on my sponsor here, get this out of the way here early. Remy Graphics makes these beautiful mugs. There's one in that gift bag for you guys. They make these laser engraved gifts. Remy Graphics does laser engraved gifts of all sorts, remygraphics.com. Local, they will do one-offs. So if you want a closing gift or whatever, but John and Sally, welcome to Jacksonville. They'll put that on there so they'll never throw it away, let alone the other hundreds of laser engraved gifts that they have available. The mug is just one. So that's done. So Tari, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming down. More, I dug into you and what you've been doing for, almost 20 years now. And you have been, we're going to dig deep because you've been through some markets.
Yes.
And, I think a lot of agents are more like Kari, and they've experienced, the rates were low and then they got high and we slowed down. Our inventory's tripled or probably quadrupled now than it was at a low point. So we definitely want to share those stories because I think you would agree real estate is just a, constant movement. Almost on a daily basis, it moves very slow, but over time you start to see these larger, I don't want to talk too much, but it was May of 22 where the rates just shot up very quickly and how it changed the marketplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's kick off with an easy one for you. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing prior to 2005. What were you doing from a career standpoint? And then what led you to real estate?
I was in banking and, to be real, I had 4 kids. And I thought, instead of working that 9-to-5 job, I could do real estate, have my own business, and be able to be home more and do more things with my kids. Mm-hmm. My daughter was 9 and all the rest were older. I had 3 boys and a girl, and they were in sports and all kinds of activities. And I just was tired of missing out. And I just wanted to, have my own business, but be able to have flexibility.
Right.
And as I found is I got very busy. And so I found that I was not working 9 to 5. I'm working 9, 10, sometimes midnight for my clients. But it became something where it was a passion for me. I absolutely love what I do.
Did you realize at the time, because any real estate agent has been doing for any amount of time, it becomes your lifestyle?
It is.
Like you say, handling stuff at 9, 10 o'clock because you want to, knowing that tomorrow comes and there's going to be more stuff on your plate, or something you're not thinking about pops, a new customer calls you and needs you to come out and do a listing appointment or something, that it just becomes a lifestyle.
It does. And it gets really busy. So when you have personal things you have going on, you have to make that one of your appointments and have that on your calendar. If you don't have that an appointment on your calendar, you'll miss out on that event with your family or whatever you choose to do. You have to compartmentalize, but number one is your client. And so that's real important to me. And I have customers all over the world. So they're in different time zones. And so I have to be prepared and ready at any point they need to reach me. So when I travel, I go on cruises, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They can reach me. And I know that sounds, maybe some people are like, oh, I just want to get away. I can't explain it, but I love what I do and I love people.
All right, Kari, we're going to bring you in on this here because one of the, obviously we see the memes about real estate agents. Mm-hmm. They're carrying their laptop on. They're on the beach. They got their laptop on. Was that mom?
That was truly mom. You were saying a lot of real estate agents don't realize that in the beginning. Thankfully, I realized that before I got into it because I grew up having her. She always had to have her phone or laptop with her, and that didn't take away from our family experience at all. Mm-hmm. But it made me realize she's really dedicated to what she does. She's really passionate. I want that. Right. And I ended up loving it in the same way that she does. Yeah.
I think there's a two-edged sword to that. You could say, hey, she's not going on the roller coaster with you because she's taking a phone call, right?
True.
We're at Disney World or the amusement parks. But there's also, she's teaching you a work ethic or even a dedication, which I don't think a lot of people, I don't want to say that a lot. There's people that just don't have that, that passion, like you truly feel you're helping someone.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to lead into, so transitioning from the banking world to there, did you have a friend who was in real estate? What got you in the fancy looking into real estate?
We actually did have a friend that was a broker, and she was fabulous. And she said, Tari, why don't you come into work for me and see if you like it and just come in the office. And within 3 months, I loved it, went out and got my license, passed everything the first time, and I was in. And this was 2005. And so I would put a sign in the yard, and I'd have 10 cars ready to come buy the house. Right. So I was thrown into the real estate world very quickly. I had to learn very fast.
Was 2005 as crazy as we saw like in 20 and 21?
2005, I can't even compare. Maybe it's because I was brand new in the business.
Right.
So, in the 21, 22, when that happened, it was crazy. But I guess for me, the 05 one was just out of this world.
A little different. There still had the Florida demand. I don't think, you agree or disagree with me. The demand, obviously COVID created this huge frenzy for people to come to Florida. Yes. Plus, I think economic, the no income tax, that kind of, the Florida friendly business atmosphere created 22. In 2003, 4, 5, and then probably going into 6 before we started to see things start to turn down.
Yes.
There was this frenzy of buy a house and wait a few weeks and it's going to be worth $20,000 more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. And it just kept going up and up and up. And that's what we were seeing. And then, of course, the crash happened, which, to be honest with you, it was kind of a learning experience. It was for many agents got out of the business, but I stayed in and I said, I'm going to learn how to help people. And so what was happening is and I'm probably one of the rare agents that go out and show rental properties, but I went out and I helped this one client get a rental. And they're like, and I said, well, what brings you to this area? Why are you wanting to rent? They said, well, our house, in another county, we're having to walk away from it. We can't afford the payment. And I go, wait a minute. I go, why don't you let me do a short sale? Because I had just started learning about short sales. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was I ended up going up to their home where they had the home that they were living in at the time. And I helped them do a short sale on that home, get them into a rental. And then 3 years later, I was able to go help them buy a new home because we were able to get the bank to accept the short sale. So I started learning how to do short sales and became an expert in short sales and foreclosures.
I want to dig into that with you a little bit, but it's going to be the second question that I just wrote on down here in my notes. In your lead up to, you're in the banking business and coming, your friend was in it, but did you have a really good picture of what you were jumping into?
I didn't.
Yeah.
It was kind of a real big shock. And because that time, 2005, it was crazy. I had no idea. I mean, I didn't know all the different dynamics of every situation's different. Even after 20 years, I'll still come in to a new deal that's completely one that I had not experienced.
Right.
So either a buyer's in a certain situation or a seller's in a certain situation.
Or just the operations of the business.
Yes.
Like you said, sometimes you're doing a more of a family consultation with a customer at 9:00 at night, right? Trying to save a marriage sometimes.
Absolutely. Many times.
Right. Did you really have a taste of a lot of the things that you're doing today, which is routine? She's seen you do, but because we're in the same household, but when you're thinking about getting into the business, would you recommend to someone new to really spend some time, either mentoring or shadowing a senior agent to truly get a taste of what they're actually going to step into?
Yes, I think it's important. And I love this podcast because I'm sure it's helping many people looking to get into this business be able to have a better understanding. So I think the number one thing when I started, I handed my card out to everyone. The cashier at Publix, the bag person, whoever I saw, I would hand my card out to and tell them and introduce myself. And you're putting yourself out there. But most importantly, it's your own personal database. So if you're starting your own, or if you're just thinking of real estate, I want you to think about who you know and who they know. And then you start, how are you doing today? I just want to let you know I'm in real estate.
How did you reach out initially?
Well, at first I was handing my cards out.
Right.
Then
to the sphere that you're talking about, these people that you know.
Oh, call.
And maybe you don't see them every day. You just got on the phone and just started saying, hey.
How are you? How's your family? How's everything going? I wanted to let you know I'm in real estate now. I'd love to help you. It doesn't matter if you're buying, selling, if you need to find a rental property, I want to help. And that's really how it started for me. And over the years, I love what I do. And most importantly, it's all about the client.
What was your confidence level? Because I think a lot of new agents get in, and many people I've had in front of me, there was a period of ramping up in their confidence level to do what you were doing, handing out the cards. The way you're projecting is you had some confidence right away, or you didn't care.
At that point, I knew I needed to put myself out there.
Right.
If I wanted to be successful at something, I had to take the first step. I had to show that initiative that I really wanted it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And that's where we talk about the grit. It's like you have to, if you really want to be successful, you've got to put yourself out there. And even this right here is not necessarily comfortable for me.
Right.
I'm not one to have that type of exposure, but I love what I do. And if it's going to help someone else, then that means the world.
I was just going to add,
go ahead.
I think one thing she mentioned was she went out and showed a rental property. And I think a lot of times in the real estate world, that's kind of looked down upon. You don't make as much money helping someone find a rental, so people don't do it. Well, she was worried about this particular family. This family needs a place to live. I'm going to help them find a rental.
Right.
And out of that, she got 2 transactions that she wasn't expecting, but it happened because she was willing to do the work that may not necessarily pay as much in the beginning. And I think that's super important to note. Sometimes you have to do that in order to be successful in the long run.
Well, no, great insight. Of the many great that I've had on here, not every one of them, but some that have really done well. Rentals is where they got started. I mean, that was the way to meet people. And the great Patty Ketchum, I've had her on a couple of times. Everyone has to have a roof over their head. Or wants a roof over their head,
right?
And so whether it's a rental or a purchase, but in my personal experience, if you're dabbling and you're getting into real estate, you probably should have some investment properties. You need to experience that so you can share with your clients.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You were talking about Sphere. I was just going to say that might have been 20 years ago when you would walk up and hand your card out. I don't know that I'm that bold to do, but I do think it's important to work real estate into your conversation. That's where I go. My kids are in school, so when I meet with people, I just try to.
Has it been easier for you, though, being her daughter?
Absolutely.
Because everyone knows mom, and she's been doing it for 20 years. You're joining mom. Okay, boom, right away you have credibility,
especially through social media or through her clients. But there's some times where I meet, people that are my age who don't know my mom yet, or people who are just having kids kind of in my same scenario,
Right.
our kids go to the same school and they may not know who she is yet. So sometimes I have to kind of work my own name in there, but it does help a lot that I've had her exposure.
Real estate's an interesting topic. It's an easy topic. I mean, everyone wants a roof. Everyone has a home. Everyone, all this, everything going on. And I've said it numerous times on the show before, real estate is a big portion of our economy. And the real estate agent is the center of that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If the real estate agent's making the transaction happen, if the real estate agents aren't involved, or there was no real estate agents, that profession never existed. People were just buying and selling houses to each other. It would just slow everything down to a crawl, really. Great. And it's the real estate agents that really, and then like you said, so to bring up the topic or have the topic while you're sitting there in the car line with the other moms and dads or whatever, it's an easy thing to talk about.
Yeah. Or you're at a soccer game or whatever it is.
Do you wear a little real estate shirt when you go to the soccer games?
Sometimes.
I think it was Eric.
Or, if you're dressed in business wear because you were just out with a client and everyone else is in a t-shirt, the question comes up, hey, what were you doing today on a Saturday?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Exactly. I think it was Erica Harding. She talked about going to she has a couple sons and she's always at their Little League baseball games and wearing something that says, I'm a realtor basically on her t-shirt, or she had these koozies. I forget what they said, but we were talking about, that was her marketing because everyone did see her sitting there with the thing, and then that would be their icebreaker would be to ask about real estate.
Absolutely.
And go right into it. Going in, so the market turns down, you start doing some short sales.
Yes.
You dive into that.
Yes.
Because I think one of the important things, which I think is going to lead us into why you created Premier, is the brokerage. And I believe, and I want your opinion, you've got enough experience to have an angle on this. How important is it for a new agent if they don't have someone who's truly going to mentor them? And that's why they go to a brokerage, where they're really out there talking to brokerage and go, who should I go to? That choice is very important. It may or may not break their career very quickly.
Agreed.
By the choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important that they make sure that whoever they're going to be working with, that they feel comfortable. They meet with them, they go to lunch with them, be on a very casual basis so that you can get to know who they are. I think that's real important, that you're able to mesh is the word, so that we can actually know that we're going to be able to get along. That for us in our business, it's all about ethics. For us, it's you take care of your client, and that means more to us than anything else. It's not the transaction. And that's why I've been in the business so long. And I've been very successful. And I say that, and yes, I owe it all to God. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, you take care of people, the money will take care of itself.
What have you found in, I imagine you probably have girlfriends or whatever ask you about real estate. Mm-hmm. Knowing what your mom and, I'm sure you guys have had this conversation. My question wasn't really anything new. I mean, obviously you talk about Premier or whatever, but when girlfriends come to you and say, hey, what's going on in real estate? Should I become an agent? Or, that conversation leads to that. What are some of the things you tell them?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard profession for a lot of people, but I encourage it. Mm-hmm. I love what I do, and if you have a passion for it, you should be doing it too. I think there's so many houses out there that I'm not even worried about, you're going to be my competitor at some point.
Right.
I think that everyone has their network and their sphere, and there's so many people in the world. That's not a concern for me. But I do think it's important, that person that you go to work for, you need to know that person, and you need to make sure you get along with that person, because if your values are aligned, then you'll be successful. You want to be able to call that person on the phone and have a question, not be afraid to do so, because especially when you're new in real estate, you don't know everything. You want to be able to call your broker or call your mentor and have them answer that question for you and not be afraid to do so.
Tari, I imagine, with, I don't know how many, you had your roster there. I didn't count how many agents you guys have at Premier. You can share that with us if you'd like, but everyone has a different way they do business.
Yes.
Now, every brokerage also, and it might not also always be the broker who's actually technically the leader. Sometimes there's just, a really successful, team leader type of thing that kind of sets the tone because they're in the office all the time. But obviously a lot of people look towards the broker to be that culture setting person. How important, is that, but to understand that everyone does their business a little differently, yet you want to find that brokerage that is somewhat like-minded, runs parallel with you in your mindset of how you want to do your business.
I agree. If you want to be successful and be in the business a long time, then my focus, at least our focus with Premier, is taking care of people. And I think that I go back to that. We have about 35 agents. We pay them 100% commission. We also pay for their airs and emissions. We set them up on their own website. We do a lot for our client, for our agents, and we want them to be successful in every way. And they have the ability to go and do what we do, where we come in at that reduced 4% when we list a home. And then if we take a buyer to a home, we also pay up to 1% toward their closing cost, whatever's allowable. And every deal is a little bit different, but it's up to that percentage. And then I think it's important that the agent that comes in, or whatever agency you choose, that you have to align, in my opinion, at least with us, with Premiers, as ethics. We are all about you taking care of your client the best you possibly can. Don't shortchange them. Don't make our Premier name look bad, because it's everything to us, taking care of people. And I have repeat business over and over again. I have a family, we were talking about this earlier. This one family, I probably have helped not only like 7 or 8 of their own family members buy and sell homes, but many of their friends. This one family, as an example, you take care of people.
I was just going to say, I think what she means by that is you're not necessarily looking for the $10 million property that's going to give you all the money. You're looking for helping people find their homes, because those people are going to feel that you were genuine in your transaction and ethical, and you aligned with them. And they're going to feel that, and then they're going to want to use you, or they're going to refer you to a friend or a family member. That's where your business grows. Yeah. Not saying you can't take the $10 million property. You can do that.
Well, I think some people underestimate that person who can buy the $10 million property. First of all, if you're just searching, there's only so many of those.
Right.
If you're looking for a larger target to go after, that mid-range of home in the area, but you never know that person who buys that $200,000 manufactured home out in Middleburg may work for the $10 million, and they're best buds and they went to high school together.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what influence he has when they go in and say, oh, you got to use these ladies because they're just the best.
And you treat every transaction the same, no matter if it's a $100,000 house or a $10 million house. They're people who are looking for a home to live. You treat them the same.
Yep. Children don't always agree with their parents.
Know that?
We've dealt some with that in life.
A little bit.
What is it maybe you admire that your mom does it in her business? Whatever, I don't know what, maybe it's how she markets. I don't know, whatever it is. There's something about her business, but that's not the way you flow. You want to do it Kari's way. Is there anything unique that you could pinpoint? I'm really kind of putting you on the spot. I just thought of this question. Okay. Something about the way she does business. Maybe she's passionate about it, but you're not so passionate about it. You like to do it this way.
So I think passion is the wrong word, because there's some times where I think she's too passionate. And for me, I don't have that. I think I have compassion, but there are times where she's gone through a deal and people are just so mean. Mm-hmm. And to me, I'm like, why do you continue to work with this person? I could not stand it. Because
you got to hear her. You got to hear her back at the office going, I can't believe it.
Especially now that we work together on some deals, I hear, either it's the way an agent treated her or a seller or buyer, whoever it is. I think for me, I wouldn't want to put up with that, but for her, it's more important to help that person no matter what, because she's not in it because, oh, you're going to be the nicest person to me. She's in it because she wants to help people no matter who it is. If the agent's really rude, you got to put up with that because you're working for your customer. And I think that's where I think I might have some growing to do in that area.
Some toleration. I don't know what the right word is there. That's the word that just came to me.
Well, I think it's important that I don't let people walk over me, but I think it's a way you can do it very professionally and be able to talk to them and just be very calm about it and just say, no, that's not going to work that way. And, because I can be a little bulldog if I need to be, but do it in such a nice professional way that it's the right thing to do.
Well, we don't know what's going on in their lives completely. Correct. Some of them tell us everything and more than we want to know, but there's sometimes, there's things going on, and that's why they're under the stress, and maybe they're whatever hostilities are coming out on you, because you're that person in their life right now trying to help them. And
so you have to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And even though you can't totally do that, it's important that you try.
Yeah.
All right, so we work through, well, you're probably still doing short sales going into 2010. I mean, really, I don't think we really got through a lot of the foreclosures and short sales probably till 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when the market completely crashed is when we said, we need to open our own brokerage and do things different. And that's when we started doing things differently. We were the ones out there, probably the first ones out there, dropping our commission to 4%. And if I bring the buyer, I drop it to 3%. And I've been doing that since 2010. And I have been so blessed because I take care of people, and I think that they
There
really
was a lot of
surprised.
ridicule
Yeah,
at
there's
first,
a
especially
lot
from friends.
and other brokerages were
Right.
angry,
Friends who are
and I'm
realtors.
like, wait a minute. I go. We have our own business, and it's what we choose to do,
Right.
and our choice is to help our sellers walk with more money, and help our buyers when they're going to go buy, so that they have enough money to be able to buy a piece of furniture for the house they're purchasing,
Or put a fence in,
or put a fence in, or
something.
appliance that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So
You mentioned earlier that there came a point where you're like, holy cow, I need to learn how to do these short sales.
yes,
And a lot of people were dropping out of the business because now they actually had to learn a wholly new skill, and the banks weren't ready for it. They weren't prepared for that situation. So some of them were easy because some people got out in front of it. Others dragged their feet, and the short sales, probably some of them probably went on for a year,
yes,
if not longer.
Yes.
Yeah, because these banks just were, whatever their mindset was just crazy. But in the brokerage you were at, because I want to take this and what you learned at the brokerage you were at, and then you create Premier, and so now you guys are creating the script basically of how you're going to be. Was there just a collaborative group of the agents that were still there? It's like, hey, guys, we need to learn how to do these short sales. We need to learn how to do these REO properties and deal with the banks. Did you guys kind of get together? Or is that something you've kind of discovered on yourself?
We discovered it. We actually were finding that no one was doing anything, that nothing was being done. And when that happened, I think everyone was in shock. What is this new phase that none of us have experienced in our lifetime before? And so when my husband and I saw that, we thought, we need to do something here and help people. And so that's kind of, he and I just started getting together, and that's when we really decided to do our own thing and start our own brokerage so that we could help other people. And so that was part of it. And we learned it very well. We actually created our own forms before the banks ever even created them, and kind of presented it that way, be able to explain, what their situation was, would you please release them from this so they have the opportunity to go buy again. And so that kind of started that whole process. And we're so grateful to be a part of that beginning phase so that we could help so many people buy in 3 years, because those that let their home go into foreclosure, the banks would just hold on to the notes, or they'd sell them to another bank. And so we found that it wasn't until their home actually did sell and close did their 3 years begin to where they could go buy again in 3 years. So we're able to help them with that short sale process. This is probably new to a lot of agents out there that don't know about short sales and foreclosures, but it was quite an experience to go through that and learn and gain knowledge. So even as you see the market fluctuate, stay with it, flow with it.
Well, it's being willing to be on the cutting edge. Like you said, you were creating your own forms, because I think, a lot of us stand back. Well, this is how we've done it. This is how we always did it. So if you had that kind of attitude, you didn't have anything to eat at night.
No.
And to say, hold on a second, this is like new to almost everybody. This has never happened before, where we have to sell homes for less than what they owe on it. We've never had that problem at the scale. I heard there was somebody posted on one of the social medias about having a short sale like this last month. I'm like, what? You guys like, yeah, it's a short sale. I'm like, whoa, they must have took a bunch of cash out of the house or something. What did they do to be in that situation? Because I haven't seen a low appraisal recently. No. Yeah. From that standpoint, but having that, and I'm going to lead into the grit part here that I prepped you for, because I think that's grit right there. That's right, to see the situation and say, I'm going to lead it. I don't know where it's going to go, but I see something, and that's obviously why some great entrepreneurs are great, because they see a need and they go after it and don't wait for someone to tell them how to do it. You figured it out, because there wasn't really a bunch of people telling you how to do it.
And so I think it's important to think outside the box. Sometimes brokerages keep you in a box. I'm like, no. Now, some people like the box, and they're really happy moving in their box. But if you want to have your own business and go outside that box, there's brokerages out there. Ours is one of them. You can be your own boss. And for us, when we do like listing presentations, and I'm so grateful, I don't think I've ever really I've been able to get that listing, because what it is the seller's number one. The seller is in control. And I think that that's important, that the seller feels like my agent's not controlling me and what I can and can't do. They're not restricting me and telling me, oh, at this certain date and this certain time, your listing's going to expire, or is this going, you're going to, that I'm telling them what to do or telling them where to price their home. I'm like, oh, no. My job is to educate you. Let's sit down. Let's talk about, when we do our listing presentations are pretty amazing. My husband is an incredible broker, and he created this incredible program to sit down with the seller and show them the 4 areas where we found, the comparables, and let them look at the range. Let them make the decision of what's best for them and their family. We're going to guide them on showing them all of the data, but it's important that they're in control, that we're not telling them what to do, but we're sharing it.
All right, because you don't, and this is a really good topic, because I was, I don't know if it's come up in every show, but it's there. Everyone has dealt with it. When you're a new agent or a newer agent and you're younger, as Kari is, you don't feel you have that maturity or that confidence or the experience, but really day one, you already had more experience than the typical buyer or seller out there because you're hanging out with her, right?
True.
And at what point, and I'm going to ask you a similar question. I'm going to start with her, with Tari, and go to you, Kari. At what point did you realize, though, that you were the expert in the room and that you were going to advise, and then which would give the seller, here's our A or B choice, based on the facts that Tari just gave you?
Of course, when we go through that listing presentation and I'm sharing with them accurate data, I think that's real important. You show them exactly what's going on, not something you've done or you kind of compartmentalized. No. You show them everything, full disclosure. This is what's going on in the market. This is what's happening in your neighborhood. This is price per square foot. Maybe some have a pool, maybe some don't. And just really explain it to them and show them in detail. Show them photos. Just be very open and total disclosure. And I think that that's key. And with that, they start feeling like, okay, they're being educated. They're not being told that, hey, this is a piece of paper and this is the range, pick him there. No.
Can you feel in the room when you're being, your credibility just rising? You just feel your glass getting full of credibility with them, every data bit that you give them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As I'm going through that process with them and I'm sitting there and I'm explaining it to them, I think when their eyes start opening, when I start seeing them respond. You
can see the body language. You can see
their body language, then you know. You know that, okay, they understand what I'm saying. And if they don't, it's so nice because they feel so comfortable. And that's important, that they feel comfortable they can ask any question they want. And they don't feel like there's no fear in asking a question.
All right, Kari, how many listing appointments have you sat in with Mom?
We do almost all of them together, so I can't even count. A lot.
Right.
A lot.
Have you taken the reins and led at all?
Yes.
Mom coach from the side?
Yes.
She is amazing. You're going to laugh at me, but she's
my biggest cheerleader.
She's my hero. She is. She's amazing. I'm very blessed.
What have you picked up by observing Mom? I mean, I know she kind of spilled some of the beans out there, but I want it in your words. As a young real estate agent, as a young person, and not feeling you may have the credibility yet that she does, but you do. You don't realize it yet. When did you start feeling, hey, I am the expert here, and start to go with it and take control?
I think in the beginning, the nerves are a big deal, and especially your first listing appointment ever, you just feel inadequate. And when you start answering the questions that the sellers have, that is when you start feeling that confidence build. And I think doing all of the research ahead of time, like we go through 4 different forms of research to bring with us to the table. So when they have a question, it's not, this is my opinion of where your home should sell. This is what the data is saying. Right. And you get to make your decision. But whenever you bring all of that data with you, any question that the sellers have, you feel confident to answer it. So doing the research ahead of time, but then answering the questions.
A lot of salespeople feel when someone asks a question, it's a rebuttal. If you analyze to interaction. Like you're saying, you love when they ask a question because it's your opportunity to sink that one other level of credibility up because you're going to answer it. Or a lot of times it's just a clarifying question that they heard you correctly, or that you'll say the same thing the second time that you did the first time, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you had to grow through that, or watching mom and mentoring mom kind of understood it? Did you understand that initially when you're interacting with
No,
a client?
I think having to sit through a listing presentation and watch her do it is what taught me that.
See the questions she was getting. Right.
And see her be able to answer them, and then see the seller, and watch, like she said, watch those wheels turn and watch the seller start to open up and listen to you.
Have you picked up on, I would hope that you're constantly tweaking your presentation because
Yes.
you're seeing the same question come up and go, let me just kill that question because I'm just going to put it in my presentation because everyone's asking that. And you're totally evolving
Yeah.
that presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every time we have a listing presentation, we think, that's a new question, or that's something we need to touch on every time. There's always
We
a new
actually have
experience.
a listing brochure now that we have, and we have a buyer brochure, and we actually put those online,
Like a
our
magazine.
website as well, that they can actually see. Again, full disclosure, so that they have the opportunity, if they're researching our company on our website, they can actually go to the listing presentation and see,
right
obviously
there on
not
our
the data, but the actual presentation itself and the process that we go through.
Working together like you do, prior to this, and I want to put this out there for agents that might be listening, because if you're working solo by yourself, you a lot of times don't have someone to bounce things off of. Prior to going to a listing presentation, what do you think do you go back and forth? What do you think some questions they might ask going into this neighborhood, or with a buyer, doing a buyer consultation? If we're going in this neighborhood, what are some things that we need to know about this neighborhood? Because these people are likely going to ask, and really kind of hash that out. And it could be on the car drive over there, but being partners, whether your mother or daughter, it's not, or just being partners and working together,
Yes.
that ability to throw those things back and forth.
Yeah, you need to know if there's a CDD in that neighborhood. And let's say, I am losing my mind today.
Well, even just some history on that.
I was going to say history of the neighborhood, the location, if it's close to shopping centers, what the schools are like nearby. Those are all things that, imagine yourself, you're going to buy a home. What are questions you would want to know? What are some things you would want to know about the area?
What do you
And
think?
we bounce those off each
Where do
other.
you guys lean on each other? I'm hoping you partnered up with her, not only because she's your daughter, but obviously to make you better.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you think are some things that she compliments you on?
Well, I think that, sometimes we get into, especially being in real estate so long, we get into the real estate lingo. And we start talking these lingo words that a consumer client has no clue what that means. So she's great in coming back and saying, well, and then kind of explaining what I just said. So it's kind of nice. I'm like, oh, I did say that lingo, didn't I?
Yeah.
So that part's great. We play on each other that way. And she just kind of helps, smooth it out. It's nice.
Same question to you. How does mom compliment you? And you've been doing it long enough for a couple of years now. So, how does mom compliment you in making the dynamic duo here of the two of you?
I think the best thing is having someone you can collaborate with, someone you can bounce questions off of, someone who's not afraid to tell you, hey, you said it too many times, or maybe you should work on this part of the presentation. Having someone who is wanting the best for you, but is giving you an outside perspective was so important for me. I know that I wouldn't be as successful as I am right now if I didn't have her by my side.
Well,
reason.
So I want to take that a little bit further. So obviously everyone doesn't have their mom in the business
Right.
and been in the business 20 years to, ride in with her, be in the shotgun seat, going to these presentations. But how important, like I said, going back to that question I was stating earlier, your girlfriends talk to you about, hey, should I get into real estate? To find someone who will pour into them, finding a mentor, take some time and find out before you just choose a brokerage, find another productive agent who is not your equal, but someone who will pour into you that you can shadow for a period of time and then have, that will listen to you do a presentation, a listing presentation with them, role play basically type of thing. How important has that been? Because I imagine that's been like the number one thing in your growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that is the number one thing in my personal growth is just having someone who's on the same team as me. And I think that's why all these real estate teams are becoming more and more popular is because they have each other to talk to and to collaborate with. Hey, let's all do an open house, or let's all get together and network together. I mean, it's so important.
Terry, I want to ask you this. We could talk about the team part of it, because I see a lot of it. I'm on social media all the time because I put so much out, and I see these teams get created, and there seems to be a lot of it at the same level. They're all been in it for a couple of years type of thing. What has been your analysis? I know that just kind of outside the box question, but
no, it's great.
But your analysis of the team, do you feel there really should be someone who's a little more senior in the group, and not necessarily by age, but just by experience in the business, at a little at bats? Because a group of newbies getting together, or people that are just 2 or 3 years, they're not going to grow as fast.
Correct.
Possibly.
What's nice is my husband is our broker, and he does a monthly Zoom call with all of our agents. They can get on there, ask questions. We go over all the, any new contract, anything new coming out. If they have questions about certain things, we can all get on and collaborate. And now you have all different perspectives from lots of different agents that have been in different times, how long they've been, how much experience that they have. So you just kind of it's more rounded. And I love that. I think that's important that you have that resource. And
I have the broker.
Yes.
Who has all of the knowledge and experience.
Oh, you hope he
doing
does.
his Zoom, yeah, well, he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have that is huge. I think it's really important. So they need to have a mentor, someone that they can go to, and it should be their broker. I mean, really, overall, the broker should have that additional experience so that they can go to them, because they're the ones that are pretty much, liable for everything.
Now, Mike, right?
Yes.
Mike's, is he still producing himself?
Oh, yes.
He's still producing.
Yes.
So, because I do think, for most offices, the broker is the trendsetter and so forth. What is, I imagine you're probably biased in this way, but there's obviously some brokerages where the broker's not producing anymore. There's brokerages where they're producing, and then people are like, oh, I'm competing with my broker. But are you really competing with the broker?
No.
It's not like people are looking at Premier and going, oh, I'm going to go with Mike because he's the broker.
There's so many agencies out there. There's so many realtors, and there's so many, but most importantly, there's so many clients that are out there waiting for that professional. And unfortunately, we've had, some realtors that have not given real estate a good name. I just have to tell people there are really good agents out there. Don't stop trying. There are some really good ones. Keep seeking them out. Ask questions, interview them. Sellers, buyers, whatever you have to do, interview them so you feel comfortable and know that they're going to take care of you. It's not about the transaction. When someone starts talking about their money, in fact, half the time, this is going to sound terrible, but half the time I don't even know how much I make. My husband tells me, because I'm about the people.
The process.
And I can tell you that. Yeah. And I love what I do. And most importantly, I love people.
What are some things that you admire about Mike from the standpoint of staying in front? Because I think a broker may be really good right now. They're out in front, but all of a sudden their brokerage grows and so forth. They're not being involved at NEFAR or whatever it is that they, getting their knowledge, because it's so important for them to be out in front and being the knowledge, not necessarily the sole knowledge resource, but definitely the guide.
Yeah, he needs to know and be up on the laws. He needs to know what's happening in the market. We need to, dot our I's and cross our T's.
And he does.
And he does. He is a perfectionist regarding that. And so when you find a broker that he knows, he's already on it, like when the flood disclosure came out, when the new sale agreements came out in December, you just have to stay up on it. You need to know the changes. And when you have a broker like that, he's a keeper.
And one of the big topics, obviously, to make whatever brokerages is, or make great brokerages, is retention, recruiting and retention. If you're not retaining, you can keep pouring people in, but they're just going out the back door and so forth. And to continue to add value, what is your mindset at Premier? What is Mike's mindset? I mean, you guys talk about this.
Yes.
Kari probably chips in a little bit, but just to have that mindset of pouring value into the agents that you have before you're actually looking for a new one.
Well, you're going to love this, because again, we pay our agents 100%. They're their own business. And what's great about that, when we started in 2010, it was just going to be my husband and I. We weren't planning on hiring anybody else.
Right.
And we had agents that came up to us and said, we want to be a part of your team. And so we have the same agents that were part of our team still with us.
Oh, wow.
From the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so that means a lot to us. And so as we continue on and gain majority of the time anyone leaves is because they moved out of state. But most of the time we've maintained, and we're very picky. And the reason we're picky is we want to make sure that that agent coming in, it's not about the transaction. You got to be about the people. You got to be ethic. You have to have that ethic mindset to take care of people and do it the right way.
You can hang around great people. That's a reason to stay, but ultimately you are running your business.
Yes.
So it's something you guys are doing to make sure Premier is Premier, right? I mean, that's you. What and Kari, maybe because you're outside mom and dad and what they created, you come in or hear what the other agents are talking about in the office. What are some of the other added values that these agents to stay there 10, 15 years? I mean, that's huge. And those type of people basically, I mean, their businesses are running themselves. They've been in the business 10, 15 years and doing it like you have. Their business is doing themselves. They're occupied every day. They already have their systems by that, hopefully by 15 years have systems down pat, right? They got their transaction coordinator, whatever they're doing. But what do you think are some auxiliary benefits of values that they see in what your dad's doing and your mom's brokerage?
Well, I think having me come on as a newer agent has kind of helped with the mindset of what do new agents need. If we have an agent who wants to come on and they're newer in the business, what are some things that we're offering them? Because like you said, these agents that have been there for years, their business is kind of already on its feet.
Yeah.
So having me come on, my dad and I can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. What are some new things we can offer? The monthly Zoom meetings, that was a new idea. We just started that in the last year. And we also do company luncheons where we want to go over, these are our new programs that we're offering. We offer back office transaction management, which is a huge thing. And again, they make 100% commission. We just charge one transaction fee. So we're not in it to make money off of our agents that work for us. We're in it to help them learn the business, because when they're successful, we're successful. And that's all that we care about.
Yeah, we went on with a new system called Bold Trail, and it's been phenomenal. I mean, just helping our agents. It's a back office program. There's a back office program and then one up front, and it just really helps make us stand out. So it's important that we are always looking for something new, more innovative. As our technology grows, we're growing with that. We don't want to stay stagnant. We want to keep moving forward and really shine.
Yeah, because I mean, there's no doubt there's agents that are jumping ship left and right because every broker tells them they got great education and great technology. The reality is, I could tell you right now, that that's what they lead for. Say, thank you, great, that's great. Tell me what you're really about, because everyone's out there will tell you they have great technology and great education from that standpoint. That made me lose thought of what I was going to do. I threw myself off. Wanted to make that statement there because you have to lead with something other than that, but you still have to have that.
You have to have it.
You have to have if your technology's,
you have to offer it.
I mean, I've worked for several lenders, and I could tell you the ones without technology, I don't even know how some of them are still in the business right now, with what's out there. And
I think also being a smaller brokerage, there's only 35 agents that work for them. And like she said, they're picky on purpose. They're not looking to be the brokerage with thousands of agents. They want agents that they know that they can mentor, that they can teach, and who will be successful
might teach them
in the business.
Right. I would imagine some of these agents are pouring back in because, you said you're picky.
Yes.
Are you chasing down new agents, making those calls?
We're advertising. We're reaching out, of course, as a brokerage, and want to give everyone an opportunity to come and sit down and let's talk. And
I think that's also important. They sit down in a one-on-one setting with every single agent who wants to become a part of our team.
What questions are you at? Because we talked earlier about everyone runs their business a little differently.
They do. And
I would imagine if we took a survey, though, of Premier, because especially the people who've been, you guys probably are running somewhat similar. You may do some things a little differently. I doubt someone's totally going a different way than the group, because you guys have grouped together and are collaborating. You're generally going to be like-minded people attract each other. But when you are talking to a new agent or someone who's interested in coming in, or maybe you're like, hey, the person's doing really good production, we'd love for you to join. What are some kind of questions you ask them to see if they're aligned with your vision of Premier?
We as a brokerage, we want flexibility. We're all about flexibility. We don't want them to feel like they have to do everything the Premier way. We want them to do it their way, whatever way they want, as long as they are, that they have those same standards we have. about, keeping the client first. Make sure that, that's number one. Being trustworthy, being honest in your dealings. All of those things that we always been taught to do as realtors. And that's real important to us. So when we start hearing, as we're interviewing and we start hearing about, I want to help so-and-so and I really want, them to be successful. When they start talking about their clients, or we have someone that'll come in and say, well, I'm trying to meet this, this threshold, which is fantastic. But when they start talking about it's all I, as opposed to our clients,
right.
You see that different. That I doesn't align with us. It's all about we. It's all about them and what we can do to help our client, not about us personally. That doesn't mean we're not going to benefit from that. I'm not trying to say this is a business. So we are obviously making money and I'm grateful for that. But you cannot be in the business this long and it be totally about the transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't, if you don't enjoy the process, it'll die.
Correct.
Yeah,
Very few people are, we like to think we're all motivated by money. Yeah. That is, one reason to stay in it, because what you're doing. But if you don't enjoy, like you said, we talking about why you love real estate. If you're not enjoying that process, no matter amount of money at the other end is eventually you're gonna be like, I'm done with this.
Yes, and my favorite part of real estate is negotiation. I love getting in the deal. What can I do to help my buyer? What can I do to help my seller get where they want to be? Negotiate it to their benefit, and it really becomes a benefit to everyone. So it's just a win-win, and that is my passion.
All right, I like this.
She's good at it.
Negotiate, yeah. And I want you're going to feed in here in a second. I'm going to lead over to Kari here and say, one of the common complaints I hear, it doesn't always come up in every podcast or even before or after the podcast, but just I've seen it. Some of these agents that might be the I agent, just thinking about themselves, and they're putting their ego and their emotions into that negotiation instead of working with you on a win-win situation. What's going to sell the house, what's going to buy the house. If they agree and sign off on it, it's on them. That we're just here to mediate the transaction. What is your mindset? Maybe what have you coached her on? Because I imagine you've seen some of this go on, and when you guys are going back and forth with some of these agents going, and you just want to reach through the phone and say, hey, would you just present this to your buyer or seller?
Yes.
What would you, to say you can't tell them this over the phone? I'm sure you may have, I don't know, maybe got you to that point. But what would you like to tell that agent on that other end who is a little more, I don't know if combative, but is starting to put their ego in there because you negotiated a little more buyer concessions or something, and they feel it's like, what would you like to tell them?
Well, what I try to do, and that's happened quite a bit, I've taken many kicking and screaming to closing. So I think it's important that when I talk to the other agent, that it's more of, and it's not that I try to get in their business, but it's important if I see that they're not doing what they should be doing for their client. That's when I kind of step in. So if I have the listing and they bring the buyer, and I'm seeing that they're not staying on timelines, which is everything in real estate. And I'm seeing it slip through. And I said, why don't you give me, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and call the buyer's lender. Let me see what I can do to help. And so I do it in a nice way, but I'm now getting more involved. And when I tell that other agent, I said, let's try to do what's best for the client. Everyone, not just one in particular, not just the seller, not just the buyer. Let's work as a team. We as real estate agents it should be a team effort on everything we do. We're all professionals, and we should be working as we are. If we're in a transaction together, we're now a team. So what can you and I do to make this transaction come to a closing where the buyer is happy and the seller is happy, and it becomes a win-win for everyone? That's how every transaction should be.
If you could, since I'm in lending, you brought up the reaching out to the, I don't know why you asked the other real estate agent, but I guess you're being polite. I thought you were going to say you were asking, can I reach out to the seller, or the buyer, the actual client, but reaching out to the lender, of course I probably count on my fingers and toes in 20 years that I've had the agent that I'm not working with, that's not working with the buyer, they'll listen, just make a phone call and just to get kind of that vote of confidence. Buyers got great credit. They have their money. Yes. This looks good. I'm very confident. close on time. Okay, they just want to hear that.
Yes.
But also during the process, got one, I sent out the email the other day, hey, appraisal's in, it's good. We got our conditional approval, just some standard stuff. You want to hear that as the agent on the other side.
Absolutely.
It puts you at ease and lets you,
Because sometimes that we're on a consistently, I don't want to say hounding the other agent, but just say, where are we? Because we certainly don't want, to raise any flags that there's an issue, but we do want to be informed.
Well, the process doesn't happen in a couple of hours. It actually happens over several weeks. So there's days where no one's hearing anything. So when there is something that comes up to actually, like the appraisal's in and good, and hey, you want to know that, they've got their, underwritings says it looks good and that sort of thing. And then obviously if there is, hey, we've got one issue here, you'd like to know about it.
Yes.
And then get status on it.
And even beyond myself, it's more important that the seller's informed, that the buyer is informed. With new agents coming in, it's so important to communicate. Communicate with your sellers on a weekly or even a couple of times a week. Just talk to them. Tell them what's happening in the market. Keep them updated on what's going on. Don't just say, get the listing and then I'll talk to you in a month. I mean, you've got to stay engaged. Same with your buyer. Let them know what's happening. How is everything going with your loan process? Is there something I can do to help you? And I said, let's work on getting, everything is just so important that if you focus on your clients above anyone else during that transaction, then you're going to find that you're going to be taken care of in the end. But you focus on them first, and that it'll be a win-win.
All right, to go back to the negotiation questions, I wanted to go back over to you now. Is mom handling generally the negotiation, or is there?
We both are. When I say myself, I meant we.
Well, I imagine you're both on the emails together, but
yes.
because you've seen some of these agents, you're like, what is this person's problem?
Yeah. I think we both are. Sometimes she brings in clients, sometimes I bring in clients, and I'm the head of that one and she's the head of hers, but we are a team at the same time. I've heard time and time again, ever since I was little, do whatever it takes for your customer. And that is true. I've watched her do whatever it takes for her customer no matter what.
Is it really the customer or the transaction? And I say this from the standpoint of your goal. You have a buyer, someone who wants to buy the house, and you have a seller who wants to sell. Ultimately, the goal is to make that transaction happen. You may think your buyer is not, will give up on a repair or something, all the different things that you negotiate, concessions or whatever, but ultimately it's not always going to start. It's not going to finish as it started. There's going to be some changes made. And if you have to understand, you just present it in a logical, educated way. We were talking about that other with all the statistics or whatever you need to support that decision. That hey, this is the price because these are whatever it is. But presenting that to your buyer, and if the buyer accepts it, they accept it. You should not throw yourself in there going, no, I'm not going to ask my buyer to pass on that $500 repair. I'm
going to share an experience we had in the past. We had a listing. We had an offer come in, and the seller was willing to accept the offer, but the agent we offer 4% commission. So we take 2, we offer 2. The agent wanted more commission, and the seller wasn't willing to pay the extra commission. So she dropped her commission to pay the other agent more just to make the transaction happen, because she wasn't worried about, I need the extra, however much it was. She was worried about, my seller needs to sell their home. The buyer's willing to pay what they want. The agent is the only one who was upset. Their buyer doesn't want to pay their commission. The seller doesn't want to pay their commission. I'll do what I have to do to make everybody happy. Yeah. Well, I think, any of your top agents, they find a way to do that. What would be another way to solve that problem, though, Tari? Instead of giving up your money, because you earn your money. I know. Real estate agents are listening right now. There's several ways to skin that cat, so to speak. There is. I mean, obviously, every situation's different. In most cases, we have that new buyer's agent agreement that we have to have every client sign before they go into a home. That happened with the FAR lawsuit over the summer. So I think with that, agents put on what they want, and whatever they don't get, their buyer has to pay. And so that's caused a big uproar in our real estate world. And one thing that we've done as a brokerage, and that's just who we actually write in a paragraph on that form, that we will take whatever the seller's willing to give us. We will not make our buyer pay us 1 penny. Here in Florida, it's never been that way, and we're not going to change.
That's just something we choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's about our buyer and whatever it takes to help them get where they want to be, and they're not going to pay us anything. We're asking the seller to do so.
Well, let's flip that to the other side.
Yes.
You're going out on the listing.
Yes.
What are you prepping, because that's your attitude.
Yes. Yes.
So I think other brokerages, they may not put it in the paragraph, but that's their mindset.
Yeah.
Is they're going to go out there and they want to know. So when you're prepping your seller,
Yes.
what are you prepping them that, hey, and giving them all the statistics and what's going to happen if they don't,
Yep.
to have some sort of money set aside and know what a lot of these agents are asking for on the buyer side, right? They're all asking for the seller to pay whatever,
right? 3
bananas, we'll call it. Well, we like Patty Ketchum, right? But what's your mind? How's that conversation going on with the seller?
Well, with now they came out with something besides that agreement. They came out with from the seller to the buyer's broker. They also came out to broker. So we use the broker form. So when we have in our listings, when we go in there for the offer, we have our broker form that we've asked the agent to fill out. And that form is what we agreed to on the listing. And that's at 4%. We're splitting that 2 and 2, and that's what they're going to get. So
the
now
seller's paying us, and then we are paying the
we
other
pay
agent.
the other broker. There's no need to even have it on the contract.
Okay.
That's what we choose to do.
Have you had some pushback from some agents on that, I imagine?
There's only been a couple.
Bringing buyers to you.
To be honest, just a couple. Otherwise, there's not been an issue at all.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
And if that buyer chooses to pay that broker that additional amount, they chose to based on they signed that agreement. And that's why we added that verbiage. Again, we want it to be a win-win for everyone. And we're kind of finding that even though that's out there, we're seeing everything kind of stay the way it's always been. Bottom line is we want to get your home sold, and we want to get you the most money we possibly can. So we're going to use that broker-to-broker form.
Good. It's a topic that comes up all the time because I think I've heard different theories on that. So one agent, they obviously had their discussion with their seller. Hey, we need to put some money aside because we're going to be asked for this. You needed you to be prepared, in figuring out what they're going to walk away with. You got to figure that out and so forth. When that buyer agent calls and says, what do you have set aside? Some agents are like, they have money set aside, but make the offer and we'll negotiate it out, basically. Others are just straight out. Yeah, we've got 2% or 3% or whatever, $1,500 or whatever their thing is. So everyone has a little different attitude on the spin.
Correct.
Yeah, sure. On it. So
I think it's most important is that, yes, you want to make money, but you don't want to be greedy. And I hate that. To be honest, I'm not a fan of the form, but I know why they had to do it.
Well, prior to August, what was your buyer broker consultation like? Were you doing a formal one, or have you gotten more formalized with it since having to come out?
No, we've always had where it's the 4%, and we split it 2 and 2.
No, I'm talking with the buyer broker agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a lot of agents, weren't even having a discussion.
Yes, it wasn't necessarily a form that anyone really used.
Yeah.
So
no, they weren't even having a discussion.
It wasn't even brought up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it. We all knew it existed, but it wasn't something that we took to. It wasn't
commissions
required.
have always been negotiable. Always.
Right. Yeah. Just because I'm saying
people didn't.
We know all the legals.
We know all the legal stuff. It's always negotiable.
No, what I'm getting after is, because some agents actually say they're actually making more money because of this, because of what the buyer broker agreement, part of it's probably on the listing side too, but from the buyer broker agreement, it's actually made them sit down with the buyer in a more, whether it's on a Zoom call because they're out of town, or sit down with them formally and actually express to them what they're actually going to do and the value they bring to the table. You being newer to it, and probably now having to coach yourself up to actually, because I think a lot of times it's hard for people. You do so many things, but actually to sit down and, I don't know, maybe you have I know some people have actually created big lists and said, we're going to do, this is what we're going to do.
Like a resume.
Yeah, because all the little things that you do and the consultations at 9:00 at night, you probably don't put that on the list that we're going to save your marriage. But to actually sit down and actually have that conversation and express to them, this is what we're going to deliver to you to build value into your, what you're going to be asking for.
I think that conversation should have always have happened, but I think this lawsuit has kind of forced everyone to do that. And in that way, I think it's a great thing, because I think buyers should understand exactly what they're expected to do and exactly what you are expected to do as their representation.
Have you had anybody, you said you're pretty good at getting your listings. Your batting average is pretty high. You go out on listing appointment, you're getting it.
Yeah.
From a buyer standpoint, any buyers push back and say, what about this lawsuit? Go back and forth, type of thing. How are you handling that objection, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, I think for them, they just want more information. It's not necessarily been an objection. They just didn't quite understand it. So we're able to kind of go in and explain what happened and why this form exists and what to expect. We're going to get this form, or, the agent has to, it's required that they actually, have this form that they submit to their broker when they show properties. So we know that form exists. And so we explain to them why that's happening, but we still go right back to where we were before. I said the bottom line is an agent wants to be paid when they bring the buyer, but you also want to get a great deal and walk with more money. So it's kind of like we're still back where we were with the broker to broker form at the 4%, 2 and 2. There hasn't really been a big kickback on that.
Right.
And agents will call and ask 2%. Okay, no problem. It's never been an issue. Very rare, maybe 2 that I've had an issue with, that have come in and say, well, my buyer's not going to buy your home if you don't pay this, because he's going to have to pay me. But it's rare.
Yeah. All right, Kari, what have you learned about yourself since entering the real estate business?
I think I have often underestimated myself. So I think being out there and doing it and showing myself that I can do these hard things, I've learned that I can do hard things. I'm better than I think I am.
You have some grit. We need to get you the grit book. You need Angela Duckworth
a
grit.
Little bit of grit.
Yeah.
And if I work hard and if I'm consistent and I follow a lot of the things that I've been taught my whole life, even outside of real estate, if I continue to be consistent in those things, I'll be successful.
Back when you started, there wasn't a lot, I remember growing up, you didn't think there wasn't these 20-something-year-old real estate agents. Yet there's a lot I've had on that have had great success at a young age in this generation. I don't think, would you agree? Back in 2005, did you see?
No, they were not young.
Yeah.
Most of them were not.
Yeah, that come in. So prior to getting in with your mom, what were, you have 5 kids, so I imagine, was that pretty much what you were doing?
Before I got into real estate, I did not have any kids.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to tell me you were raising the kids, but you definitely aren't that old then. Oh.
No, I did not have any kids.
But your husband took you to South Dakota. So what you said you were doing, I think you said administrative work. That's what you kind of tell me.
I was working administratively for their company in the beginning. And after doing that for a few years, I realized I do have a passion for this. I do want to pursue this.
Right. And so making that leap was easy for you.
It was.
So circle back to the question I asked you earlier about the girlfriends talking to you. They see you having success with it. What are you telling them when it comes to that grit, going back to that you had to jump through make a leap of faith? It was easy because mom was there to help you, but they can do it.
Yeah, in some ways I would say it's easier. In some ways it's harder because everyone knows her name, her face. So you have to kind of put yourself out there and make your own name and make your own face available. But for somebody starting out, I think the biggest thing is success is not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Do the hard work, do the rentals, show the properties, do everything you can, put your name out there, tell everyone in every conversation you have, somehow bring up that you're in real estate. You don't have to say, hey, I'm a realtor, but bring it up in your conversation, and over time you're going to be successful, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Mom, is there going to be a point where you're going to clip this umbilical cord or what? Not that she's starting to fly on her own, right?
She's already soaring.
Yeah.
But one day maybe when I'm very old and
don't want to do it anymore. Just give her your referrals. So would you go show these people the house, right?
One day.
All right, let's just finish up with this right now. Maybe what you guys may be doing, maybe what Mike is putting out to Premier. But what are three things in today's market right now, where interest rates are at right now? Our inventories, growing. Like I said, we're 3 or 4 times what it was the low, which was probably 18 months ago, maybe something like that. The low point. Now we have these inventories growing. What are 3 things agents need to be doing right now? Whether you're doing it or you guys are obviously talking about in the brokerage, but what do you think that each of them should be doing right now in their business?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Biggest thing is to stay up to date on your education, not just what's required of you in education, but if there's a new form, if there's new laws, you need to be on top of those.
Right.
And whether that's through your broker, which thankfully it is for us, every time something new comes out, he's very good at informing the whole company. But secondly, I would say networking. A lot of that might be, I was going to say third, social media, but that might play hand in hand in there. But network yourself, even just in your social conversations, whether it's at your kid's soccer game or...
Do you feel there's a buildup right now of people who really want to sell? They really do want to move, but just the market conditions aren't just right for them, whether it's interest rates or whatever. But there's a lot of people on the sidelines, buyers who aren't buying because the rates are high, sellers who want to sell, but there's a lot of people on the sidelines ready to jump in when something shifts in the market.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just when the rates came down just a tiny bit, we had buyers come out from the sides who were waiting, and now they're all coming out wanting to purchase property. I mean, we had so much go under contract just in the last month.
It's been crazy. So with many of my sellers, a lot of them are either downsizing or they're upsizing. And so we're able to take, the sellers for resale. And we have a lot of people coming in from out of state, out of the country, coming in and buying homes for cash. We talked about that. But then also we're taking our buyers to new construction because they're buying the rates down. So new construction right now is the way to go if you need the loan. If you need to have that loan, because they'll drop, the rates right now are pretty low.
And I think a lot of times, I've heard it time and time again, I don't really need a real estate agent when I go buy new construction, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes you do.
Probably more so, actually.
Yes, more so. Nothing against the agents who work there, but their job is to work for the builder. Their job is not to work for you. So you need somebody from the outside coming in who's going to represent you, work for you, and get you the best deal.
I think everyone, new construction, they insist on having the inspector, because I've heard so many horror stories when it comes to new construction. And
I think you should insist on having that inspection done. But again, an agent coming from the outside is going to do what's best for you. That may not be a recommendation that comes from someone working for the builder.
Well, and I think also the agent coming in with you to that new construction needs to not just be there for when you do your first transaction and you have, it's all set, and then they all of a sudden you don't hear from them again till closing. That agent needs to be there as whatever the buyer wants. So if the buyer wants it, let's just say it's a savvy buyer, they've bought many homes, they don't need you at every single inspection. But many of the new ones have no clue. Yeah. And they want me, and I said, I will be at every single thing, whatever you want me to be at to help you through this process. And I'm coming in from the outside. But I think it's important that they know that I've got their back, that I've been through this thousands of times. I can help them do the walkthroughs, whatever it may be, to help deal with the builder if there's issues that come up. And so I think it's important.
We have a customer whose home is almost built, and whenever they first signed, they were promised that their lot would be big enough for a pool. And turns out it wasn't. And had they not come with an outside representation, they would have just said, sorry, there's nothing we can do, and had to buy that lot. Well, she comes
or eat their earnest money, right?
Right.
If they're going to walk away.
Or lose the deposit.
Right.
And that's a big deposit that they require.
This happens more so than I think people realize. Because the story I was coming out, literally, there was one of the last houses in this little neighborhood. The house was positioned to look over this retention pond versus looking at their neighbor next door, which is only 10 feet away or whatever. And that's the way they looked to position the house, whatever the garage on that side or whatever it was. And sure enough, they poured the slab the opposite way.
Yep.
And now you're looking at your windows are looking at your neighbor's side, and nobody's looking at the retention pond.
And this is someone's home that they have to live in.
Exactly.
It's not just a house. It's someone's home, and they have to live in that, looking at their neighbor now.
Yep.
But if they had an outside agent, then that
They
agent
could
should be
have gotten
coming
that
in.
news.
Now you got someone to go to bat for you. Now you
Absolutely.
got someone on the phone for you.
Yes.
Now you got someone,
Who's not afraid to
at least
say,
getting
"You
your
did
earnest
this
money
wrong."
back,
Yes.
saying you guys screwed this up. Let's just
Yes.
call it. Give me my earnest money
Yeah.
back. We'll go buy somewhere
In fact,
else.
I told him, I
Exactly.
said, I go, you got to move them to a different lot because that
And
promise isn't
they
going.
pushed
yeah.
back. They
Yeah.
did not want to do it. But we kept fighting, and we
And
got
they-
them an even better lot than they originally
Those are two factual stories, and it happens more so than you can imagine. And that's why I think the inspector comes in great, because the inspector is going in at each of those things, and the inspector should know how that slab should be poured.
Yes.
And it's like, no, hey guys, you got this thing staked out the wrong way. They could have saved it at that point,
Yep.
but as soon as they pour
Yes.
that slab, it's
too late.
over, game over.
Exactly.
They're not moving it. And
right.
yeah, 100% inspectors, because we are selling so many new home construction.
Inspectors are crucial.
they're crucial.
And really good ones that
Yeah.
will go through you with the entire process
Yep.
of the build.
Yep. I don't think people realize the horror stories. Buying a house, it's not like you go down the car lot, that car is made the same. You see everything. I mean, the engine
see it
runs,
before you buy it.
but it's also coming with at least a 3-year warranty on on that engine. But the house, there's no lemon law that I know of on a house that was built the wrong way, unless the Chinese drywall situation that went on years
crazy.
ago. But they're out there, so that's why you got to have those inspectors. But ladies, I appreciate you coming on today. Really enjoyed our
Appreciate you
conversation.
having us.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add here before I cut us off?
No, I think you did great.
Thank you, ladies.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.